Hello, cherubs. Thanks for joining me once again where people continue to be wrong on the interwebs. They continue to be James DiNicolantonio, PhD holder, but I don't think he's a PhD holder in nutrition. I think his thesis is in some aspect of pharmacology or something, from memory. It doesn't matter. We're about to find out exactly how much James actually does understand about basic chemistry, basic physics, basic physiology. The short version, for those of you that don't have time, nothing is what James understands about it. Basically, absolutely every assertion that's about to come out of this boy's gob is going to be false. I am going to be using the pause function many, many times, so brace yourselves for that, and if that's too, I don't know, triggering for you, then perhaps you should click off right now, because James is about to tell us all about the acid-base balance and how the diet affects that according to him. James, you may be interested, recently had an exchange with one small yellow furry teddy bear on the X platform, where he repeatedly falsely claimed that said yellow teddy bear had said things that he's never said, repeated himself mindlessly, posted the same ridiculous, farcical nonsense out of any context whatsoever, refused to engage in a debate with myself, apparently, when Ted invited him to come and talk to me, because basically James lacks the fortitude, courage, and the gear to do that, and wouldn't actually even accept that Ted is not me. Can't even get his head around that. One of the real problems that James has, he has many problems, but one of the very serious problems James has is a really very serious ego problem, frankly. He's completely out of control in terms of his ego. He also has no capacity, it seems, to understand the basic tenets of scientific discipline, or any ability at all to actually stay on task, to go through any so-called evidence that he wants to produce verbally on the spot with a person such as myself who can deal with his nonsense. No, he just wants to post sound bites and say, so therefore that absolutely proves me right, when in fact it doesn't, James, not at all. So anyway, given that James doesn't want to front up to defend himself, he is now subject to the full force of being corrected by someone who knows more about this than he does. So let's hear it, James, all about the acid-base balance.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about acid-base balance.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be discussing how the diet affects the acid-base balance in the body.
It doesn't, still.
So essentially you have animal protein and grains, which...
Nothing else is ever eaten by people, by the way. That's all you have. Animal proteins and grains. According to James. Good. Good start, James.
Actually bring an acid load into the body.
No, they don't. They do not bring an acid load into the body. False. Absolutely false. Completely false.
Whereas fruits and vegetables have...
I'll get to the physics when we need to.
Have the opposite effect.
No, they don't, James. False again.
And I'm going to show you kind of how this works.
No, you're not. You're going to put forward a model that you were taught by an equally destitute, equally lacking academic in turn, who also, like yourself, James, completely lacks the ability to think critically about what it is that they were taught by a person before them in turn. This is a model which is fundamentally false from the ground up. It's out with basic physics, basic chemistry, basic physiology, known concepts thereof, and it's also out with basic common sense, as is arguing online with a small yellow teddy bear, James. Okay, but we'll deal with that another day, perhaps. Let's deal with the acid-base thing, though.
So in the liver, animal proteins and grains are high in sulfur-containing amino acids, cysteine and methionine.
Yes, but they're amino acid anions, okay, which is a different thing. So let's call a spade a spade.
When that gets oxidized in the liver, it forms sulfuric acid?
No, it doesn't. Not at all. Absolute nonsense. False. Just because you read that in a textbook somewhere, James, and just because you might be able to splash up on the X platform a picture of a diagram showing that that's what occurs, published somewhere, that doesn't mean that that is, in fact, in the objective reality, what does happen. Because it doesn't. Still, the local pH actually determines the speciation of acids and dissociated ions. The pK value of sulfuric acid is more than 2 points separated than the local pH value, ergo, all of it is dissociated. So when it's produced, it is produced directly in the first instance as sulfate, SO4 2-, and not as sulfuric acid. Ergo, there's no need to account for 2H+, because actually, James, well, number one, H+ does not exist in aqueous solutions, so the need to account for its mass is farcical. That's not what occurs in terms of acid-base at all. And right there is where your fundamental misunderstandings start and continue along the same vein, because you're going to keep saying these absolute facts that you were taught by someone that are demonstrably false, in fact. Because when I say H+ does not exist in aqueous solutions, you can take that to the bank. I've checked it out, James. I have studied acid-base balance. I have a number of publications in the area, as it turns out. Okay? So, again, making a false statement that anyone that disagrees with what you have to say hasn't studied this. Well, yes, I have. Very, very, very well. In fact, I've studied it much better than you. In fact, you wouldn't pass my 101 course in basic biochemistry. I was just about to say you'd be invited to resit next semester, but actually we used to have this thing when I used to work in academia, whereby if we had a student that we believed to be completely incapable of passing our course, that we could exclude them to save them money. You'd be excluded from my course, James, because you are too stupid to actually pass it. You are too lacking. You are destitute in the ability to comprehend the basic physics here, or understand the basic realities, the objective realities of the universe. All you have is a series of facts and figures taught to you by somebody else, based on fundamentally false and flawed paradigms. It's sad for you and your country. Anyway, what's next?
Which then dissociates to a negatively charged sulfate and 2 positively charged hydrogen ions.
False, as I've just said. I've explained the basic concept there. Those that don't understand this need to go and look up the Stewart acid-base theory, which is both internally and externally valid, unlike James's idea, which is not. Sorry about that, James.
It's the hydrogen ions that actually makes our body more acidic.
No, it's not, James. They don't even exist in aqueous solutions. False again. Wrong. Acidity in aqueous solutions is determined by H3O+, not H+. So you don't even know that, clearly, or understand the difference or why that's important. Very, very sad for you indeed.
And we neutralize these hydrogen ions with...
No, we don't, because they still don't exist.
Bicarbonate. So one molecule...
No, bicarbonate, how would that neutralize a thing that doesn't exist, James? It doesn't, in fact.
A molecule of bicarbonate can neutralize 1 molecule of hydrogen ions.
According to the theory as you were taught it, James, and sadly you lack the capacity to actually critically analyse the theory and see whether it pans out in objective reality, and it still doesn't. So no.
But we're still left with this negatively charged sulfate, which has to be eliminated out in the urine via the kidneys.
Right. Luckily that the kidneys are designed exactly for that kind of task and that it's no problem for them to do it. It's almost like we've had, 13,800 million years to develop these kidneys or something.
However, the kidneys have to maintain what's called electroneutrality.
No, James, wrong again. Goodness me. Electroneutrality, James, is a law of the universe. It's a fundamental first principle. It applies to all aqueous solutions, be they biological or not, and it requires no input from kidneys whatsoever, in fact. Dear, you're not doing well, are you?
So in order to eliminate a 2-, we have to bring through a 2+.
No. False. Removing 2- from one aqueous solution on one side of a membrane and putting it on the other side of the membrane will cause a reduction in the effective concentration, the activity, in fact, of the H3O+ ion in the water because of the law of electroneutrality, which applies whether or not there is a kidney present to move ions from one side of a membrane to the other. Still.
So typically what we do is we use sodium to do that until the kidneys can increase the production of ammonia.
No, wrong again. The kidneys do not produce ammonia, James. Still, the kidneys produce ammonium, NH4+. Why is that? Well, because the local pH determines that. Okay? Still.
And then basically ammonium is formed in the
Yes, immediately and directly. Ammonia was never there, in fact.
actual collecting duct to allow the excretion of the negatively charged sulfate. So our kidneys don't have a limited capacity to get rid of this acid.
No, because it's not an acid. You're talking about SO42- plus NH4+ there. Neither of those are acids at all. Buffoon.
And that capacity is when you're basically at a urinary pH of 6.5 or less. For half the population, if you have a urinary pH of 6.5 or less, you are going to actually retain some of that acid.
No, it's the other way around. 180 degrees out of phase with objective reality again there, James, in terms of cause and effect. The retention or excretion of various ions of either positive or negative electrochemical charge is the thing that determines the pH, not the other way around. Still, this boy is limited. Very limited indeed.
So basically about 1 milliequivalent of acid for every 2.5.
No acid at all is being excreted. It still doesn't exist in a biological aqueous solution because of the local pH of that solution. Look at the pK values, James. This is basic fundamental first principles. This is basic chemistry that I understood before I left high school. You have a PhD and you don't understand this. It stuns me. Anything that stuns me more is your arrogance, some. The complete lack of self-awareness to see how badly out of your depth you are here and how absolutely farcical your arguments are. Basic physics and first principles are actual things, James. They're there for a reason. And you need to apply those to your model that you've been taught by someone, and then you'll see how badly wrong you have it. Well, you would if you had the intelligence to understand what's being said to you. Sadly, it seems that James doesn't. He can't even tell the difference between a small yellow teddy bear caricature on some platform, underpinned by a human person staffing that particular profile, that he has no idea who that is. He's assuming, as do many of you, it seems. Interesting. Anyway, carry on.
Milliequivalents above 40. So if your urinary pH is 6.5, you're excreting about 40 milliequivalents of acid.
No, if you are having a certain concentration of, not acids in fact at all, James, still, various ions in your urinary pool, that will determine the pH of that urinary pool, along with the partial pressure of carbon dioxide gas, the temperature of the solution, and the amount, if any, of weakly dissociated anions and things in that solution, such as amino acid anions or globulins or any of those kind of things that might be in the urine at various times at various different stages of health and disease. Okay? 4 control levers only on pH in any fluid solution. Temperature, carbon dioxide concentration or partial pressure, I should say, excuse me. The net balance of all strongly dissociated ions and milliequivalent values, plus and minus. By the way, they all add up to 0 at all times. You'll find. That's the law of electroneutrality, by the way. And the final thing is the weakly dissociated anions, mostly in the form of, well, protein residues of various kinds, mostly. Okay? Nothing else? Right. What's next?
Which about half the population is going to be retaining some of that acid.
So half the population have kidneys that retain a certain amount of a certain ionic species precisely in order to assist with maintaining the homeostasis of the blood plasma. Excuse me. Good. Good. No problem.
Now, there are two things that happen. You have to neutralize that acid.
No, you don't, because it's not an acid. And if it was an acid, James, it wouldn't need neutralizing because it would have no electrochemical charge. Acids, example, the one you spoke about falsely existing upstream before, sulfuric acid. Let's use that one for an example. What's the chemical formula for sulfuric acid, James? H2SO4. Is there a plus or minus on that? No? Right, well, it doesn't need neutralizing then, does it? It's already neutral. Okay? Fucking idiot.
And even if you do neutralize it, some of that typically gets retained, especially if you keep eating high amounts of animal protein and you're not offsetting it with some type of base.
Rubbish, James. Absolute nonsense. Completely false paradigm. Completely out with basic physics. Shows no understanding whatsoever of the objective reality in which we actually find ourselves. Very, very poor show, son. Excluded from resitting the paper next semester because I don't want to take your money again.
Like sodium or potassium bicarbonate or fruits and vegetables. Now, typically you have to eat 2 to 3 times the volume of fruits and vegetables to fully offset the acid load from animal protein.
Well, number one, there's no acid load still, so you don't need to do any such thing. And two, the facts of the matter are, in terms of the dietary requirements for human beings, in terms of fruits and vegetables, I'll give you the exact value. Not 1 single gram ever is required, none at all. A person can live and thrive and do well for multiple decades on a diet not consisting of any fruits or vegetables, consisting, in fact, of, well, strictly meat and animal fat, it seems. I can point you to, well, now there's hundreds of thousands and millions of anecdotes of people who have been doing this particular diet, and some of them for multiple decades, up to and including one example, James, who is a female, by the way, who has been eating a strictly meat and animal fat diet for 67 fucking years, James, who is fitter, stronger, and healthier than either you or me, actually, whose bone mineral density would be vastly better than you or me. This is a woman that runs around on a ranch as a rancher, doing rancher stuff. This is a hard woman in her 80s, James, with better bone mineral density than you, I'll guarantee it. Okay? I know it's just n equals 1 and an anecdote, but there it is. Okay? There are many other anecdotes of less than 67 years, both male and female. Good. Shall we carry on?
So what happens if your urinary pH is 6.5 or less? So I've tested this many times.
Doesn't mean that what you've tested is actually informative on anything, James. Because you do not understand the basic physics, the basic chemistry underpinning aqueous pH control. You don't understand it at all. You have no idea what it is you're even looking at. So making measurements of things does not inform anybody on anything. Okay?
I've tested, I eat an animal-based diet.
What's that, James? What's an animal-based diet, son?
So I've tested this many, many times.
You've said that, remember? Brain fog much?
Eat animal-based, my urinary pH is typically 5. Okay.
So hot. See, the thing is, urinary pH swings a lot more widely than does the blood plasma pH. I wonder why that is, James. Maybe it's because the very technique that the body uses to maintain the homeostasis of the blood plasma is by pumping various ions in or out of the blood plasma precisely in order to maintain that homeostasis, thus allowing a small sac of fluid in a sac in your body somewhere, your bladder, to vary quite widely. Why would you think that to be a problem of any kind? Other than you have calcium supplements to sell to people, which they don't need. Follow the money, folks.
Okay, so that's 100 times more acidic than a urinary.
Yes, we understand the pH scale. Those of us that know anything about pH, James, yes, we get it.
pH of 7. So you typically want a neutral urinary pH. You don't want
No, you don't, James. That's false. You want your pH to be exactly what your body sets it to be according to the activity of your kidneys in the whatever time it took to fill your bladder that time around. That's what you want. You want your body to do what it's supposed to do. The exact thing that your body and your ancestors' bodies and their ancestors before them have been doing for, millions of years, James. Millions and millions at least. in a human form or very similar to it. So no, you don't want your urinary pH to be neutral. You don't want that at all necessarily. Theology. Nonsense.
To be excreting any acid out in the urine.
Well, you're not. We've covered that. You're still not. Acids that have pK values below the local pH by 2 pH unit points will not exist as acids. The anions will exist, and you don't have to account for the mass of the protons still, because they still don't exist in aqueous solution, James. All right?
It's not ideal, and I'll show you why.
No, you won't, James. What you'll do is continue to theologically bang the same ridiculous Bible you've been banging all along. You'll run the same plays because you don't have anything else in your playbook. That's the main reason you don't want to come and debate me, sunshine, is because you know damn well that I've got you. I'm running rings around you. It'll be a walk, son. All 4 bases, 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll lose every single pillar and post. And you won't do that because you know that. You have at least, I guess, enough awareness to see that I will tear you to shreds in a debate. That's why you don't want to do it. Because all you've got is the theology as it was taught to you. You don't actually understand the basic physics here, the basic first principles, clearly. Because you're talking about H plus existing in a fluid solution. It doesn't. Sorry about that.
Yes, we can do it. The kidneys can do it.
There you go. And they have been doing it for, well, millions of years, as I said.
But there are many harms that happen.
No, there aren't, James.
In order for our kidneys to be able to actually do that.
No, there aren't, James, still. Just saying that eating meat is harmful doesn't make it so. It isn't.
So I'm going to go into basically how that works.
No, you're not. You're going to give us a theology, and I'm going to correct you when you get it wrong, which will be fucking everywhere, as usual.
So you have to neutralize this acid.
No, you don't, still, because it still isn't acid. See that? NH4 plus and SO4 2-. Neither of those are acids still. And acids are already neutral anyway, aren't they? NH4 plus and SO4 2- aren't neutral. And they don't need to be neutralized. They are being used to control the pH of the blood plasma by being made to be present in it or absent from it. Still.
Gets retained. Okay, and there's also several things too. In order to excrete this, right, I said you had to produce ammonia.
Which is wrong, you don't. Still, it's ammonium directly as produced within 10 to the negative 6 seconds. Because of the local pH constraint. Still.
And then basically it's the ammonium that will excrete the sulfate out. But ammonia is toxic to the kidneys, first of all. So
ammonia is toxic to kidneys, correct. That's why the local pH is set homeostatically to a point where the body is not poisoned by ammonia. It's amazing, isn't it? It's almost as if the body's been doing that for millions of fucking years. Still.
If you continuously produce a ton of that, at least in animals...
You don't produce any ammonia ever, still. Just splashing up a diagram on the X platform where somebody claims that that's what's happening and got it published somewhere doesn't mean that it's true in the objective reality in which we find ourselves. It isn't. Go and look up the pK value of ammonia and then compare that to the local pH of the urine throughout its entire physiological range, James. See what you come up with. All right?
Studies, that harms the kidneys.
No, it doesn't. How can ammonia harm the kidneys when it does not exist therein? Explain that one, James. How's that?
I don't exactly know how much animal protein a human would have to consume, for how long, and how much kidney damage. But
that's the first scientifically remotely correct thing I've ever heard you say, James. We don't know how much protein could possibly be a problem for the human kidneys because there is no evidence of any kind whatsoever that it is. Anywhere. Still. And the fact that you want to sell people calcium supplements that they don't need has no bearing on that fact which remains a fact still.
We have many clinical studies in patients with chronic kidney disease.
Oh, right, well, that's completely irrelevant to those that don't have chronic kidney disease. Yes, a person with chronic kidney disease is less able to deal with an amount of protein. That's a disease process and it needs ameliorating. That's nothing to do with normal physiological function, James. Okay? This is another very serious problem that James has. He extrapolates. A thing that's true in disease is true in health, is it? No. A thing that's true over a year is true over 4 decades or 5 decades or 6, is it, James? No. A thing that's associated with another thing is the cause of that thing, is it, James? No. Okay, basic, fundamental tenets that a schoolboy should understand, let alone a person who wants to be taken seriously as an academic. The fact that you hold a certificate that says you're an academic, a PhD, doesn't make you one, son. Neither does publishing a number of articles, and once again, well done on that. Nonetheless, you are an absolutely, totally vacuous imbecile. Right, let's carry on.
Where if you alkalinize the body, you give them sodium.
Define that, James. Alkalinizing the body. Shall we wait for that? We won't.
Bicarbonate or citrate, and that improves.
Bicarbonate, James, is volatile in the human blood plasma. It's also a dependent variable in terms of its concentration. You cannot independently moderate the concentration of bicarbonate by adding, neither by removing it. That's a breach of Le Chatelier's principle, another first principle that, if you knew anything about chemistry, you'd understand. Whoops.
Improves kidney function. It improves blood pressure. And
what's the mechanism of that? And what do you mean by improve? Define that. No, don't define anything or actually look at any actual evidence of anything or critically evaluate what's in front of you. No, God, no. Just say words because you want to, James. Doesn't make them right. Doesn't give them any veracity at all. Still wrong. Sorry about that.
Also has been shown to improve bone mineral density, bone health, etc.
No, false.
So typically you
just gave us a cause and effect statement. Stop with the mouth smacking, by the way, too. That's really, really irritating, son. This proves by K. Absolutely wrong. Nope. Still doesn't.
In order to see if alkalinizing the body...
Again, define that, James. Still. Alkalinizing the body. What the purple fuck is that?
...has benefits, you have to test a population, first of all, that is acidic.
Well, who's that? Nobody. Because homeostasis is still a thing, James. It still exists. Every single living human being has pH ranges of the various fluid compartments in their body precisely controlled, tightly controlled by homeostasis within very, very narrow ranges, right up to the point of death. Still. All right, so there you go. There's the end of that.
And if you want to see benefits quickly, you actually have to give like sodium or potassium bicarbonate.
It still isn't going to work. Bicarbonate, James. Still a dependent variable in terms of its concentration. Okay? Still.
In a population like who has chronic kidney disease.
Well, that doesn't mean they're acidic, James. Now you're conflating a disease process, chronic kidney disease, with being acidic. They're not acidic. Still. Buffhead. This is stunning, isn't it, kids? It really is amazing that this child, this man-child, really genuinely thinks he knows more about this than I do. He really genuinely thinks he's in the right here. It's just stunning beyond belief.
You want to see benefits within like a year because in someone that's like healthy.
That's like healthy. What's that, James?
These harms are over decades.
Hang on. What harms, James? You still haven't identified any harms whatsoever from eating only meat and animal fat with no fruit or vegetables. There are no harms that have been identified in that situation. None, still. So now we're just left to assume that because you say there are harms, that there must be. Well, there aren't.
It can take a long time. And I've done...
Yes, disease processes can develop over a long period of time. Yes. So what?
Several videos showing how like the Inuit had a lot more compression fractures, even though they got good amounts of calcium and vitamin D, likely due to the acid load of the.
Geez, you don't think Inuit have hard physical lives that are really, really quite taxing in terms of, the hunting activities, and you don't think that more fractures is not a surprise in that population at all, James? And Inuits when? In what time period are you talking about there? Because if it's anything after the Inuit made contact with modern society and started to be encouraged to do modern things, then it's invalid, isn't it, as a model? Oopsie daisy.
Animal-based diet. And the Bellevue study, which was a 4-month...
4 months. Okay, well, whatever the study said, it doesn't really matter, because now we know something here. You've just said a 4-month study called the Bellevue study was conducted. Great. What can the outcomes of that study, whatever they were, tell us about 4 months and 1 day? Or 4 years? Or 40? Absolutely fucking nothing, James. Not a damn thing. You cannot extrapolate the findings of a study beyond its tenure. And if you're going to, you also need to make sure that if you're going to use what was found in one situation, that study, you would need to find a homogeneous group of individuals, as in homogeneous with the test population in that study. If they're at all different, then it's an invalid claim. You also cannot copy and paste results from one population to another. Basic science. Basic discipline. Okay? No? All right, what's next?
Metabolic ward study from...
Just saying metabolic ward study doesn't mean it's actually any good.
With Stephenson and Anderson, like the famous Arctic explorer who lived in the Arctic for 11 years and ate mostly an animal-based diet. He strictly ate nothing but meat, some organs, and the associated...
You were there, were you, James? You saw everything that Stephenson ate during that period, did you? No? Okay.
Fat. And they went into, Stephenson and Anderson both went into negative calcium balance.
Over what period of time? 4 months? What about over 4 months and 1 day? Or 4 years? Or 40? James? What then? No? Okay.
They were losing around 200 milligrams of calcium from their body every single day because of the...
Okay, was that a steady rate every single day of the 4 months? Was it a straight line? And even if it was, which it wasn't, by the way, does that mean that we can extrapolate that to beyond 4 months? No. Still. Okay? Do you see what's going up the flagpole here? Theology. Pseudoscience. This is a bloke with a barrow to push. He wants to sell you calcium supplements. Okay? He's a shill and a shyster. And not a very good academic. Also as dumb as a box of spanners, but that's for another day.
Acid load.
No, still no acid load, because there was still no acid, James. Still.
Because when you consume animal protein and you don't offset it with base, that
rubbish, James.
Makes the interstitial fluid more acidic.
No, it doesn't. The interstitial fluid pH is tightly controlled by the same homeostatic mechanisms that we've been talking about all along. Still.
Activates osteoclast, that breaks down bones. So I'm going to...
Rubbish. Don't tell Maggie that 67 years later. She'd kick your ass, James, for a warm-up. Okay?
Go into kind of some how this works here. But
no, you won't. You'll give us a theology again, and it'll be wrong again, and it'll be based on fundamentally flawed tenets again. Let's go.
In order to excrete the sulfate from, the sulfuric acid...
No, it's still not sulfuric acid, James. No.
Again, the kidney has to produce ammonia. So
no. Still doesn't produce ammonia, James. Still ammonium directly as produced according to the local pH constraint.
In order to do that, though, you actually have to break down muscle and connective tissue.
Rubbish. Absolute fucking nonsense. My word. I have never heard such a load of rubbish in my life.
Get out the glutamine to then, get the ammonia to then do that. So
glutamine is an amino acid, James. It's not a protein. It's not part of the body structure necessarily, at least that's not where it came from necessarily, you can eat foods containing glutamine, and that can be used to produce ammonium. You don't have to take it from your body structures at all. Goodness gracious.
You have to increase muscle and connective tissue breakdown. That doesn't mean you can't.
No, you don't, James. That is false. That is an absolute bull-faced lie. No, you don't.
Build muscle eating an animal protein diet that's not offset by base. Of course.
This boy is just incredible, meaning lacking in any credibility at all.
You can build muscle, right? You can lift weights. You would just build more muscle if you offset that acid load. So that's
rubbish, James. There's still no acid load.
That's the key. Now, you will also use bone to buffer.
Rubbish. Absolute bloody nonsense. Here's what James is telling us right now, boys and girls. Eating meat and animal fat, the very thing that we've evolved eating, almost nothing else but, for the best part of the last 5 million fucking years, is going to cause us somehow to dissolve our own fucking skeletons. Have you ever heard anything so fucking ridiculous in your life? I haven't, other than LDL causes heart disease. Go on there, James.
The acid load as well to get at the
No, there's still no acid load, James. None, still.
Carbonate. And serum bicarbonate levels can also go down as well, although the body constantly fights to keep serum pH and bicarbonate trying to be at a normal level, so you may not actually...
Homeostasis is called, James, and it's not trying to do it, it does it. Very effectively indeed. Remember, the total range of pH possible in the blood plasma, the difference between the highest and the lowest amount that you will find in a living human being is 12 parts per 100 fucking million. Still. Okay? Very tightly controlled, very successfully controlled by anybody's language. All right? What's next?
You even see super, super low bicarbonate levels. Like they might
It defines super, super low. That's very scientific, James. Good stuff, son.
Just go down a little bit. You will also see blood pH go down. So typically, a healthy blood pH will be at 7.4. This will slowly drop on a diet that's high, in acid over years to like 7.36.
Okay, and what's the difference between 7.42 and 7.36 in terms of the absolute difference in the effective concentration of the hydrogen ion, so-called, which is actually hydronium, as I said before? 2/3 of 5/8 of 7/9 of fuck all. That's what the difference is. Absolutely, utterly ridiculous that you would put that forward as being meaningful in any way, shape, or form. It isn't. It's well within the physiological range still. What's next?
Doctors will still consider this normal, even though...
Who gives a shit what doctors consider? There are very, very few doctors out there that know dick about fuck, James. Very few indeed.
Your blood is significantly more acidic. It has more...
No, it isn't. Absolute rubbish, James.
Hydrogen ions in it.
No, it doesn't. It has no hydrogen ions at all, still. They're hydronium ions, James. Okay? Wow. Stunning, isn't it, kids?
You're more acidic.
No, you're not, still. The difference between 7.42 and 7.36 is basically, to all intents and purposes, physiologically, statistically, and in every other sense, fuck all. Not a damn thing. My God.
But just because you haven't dropped to 7.35, you're not considered acidic, because that basically your blood has to be 7.35 pH or less to be considered acid.
So threshold values applied by some arbitrary decision of some consensus of people that don't understand this in some way. That makes good sense, James. That's good sciencing. Well done, son.
Anemia, that's acid in the blood, but
no, it isn't. My God. The pH of the blood has nothing to do with acid. Because acid, James, remember, is not negative or positive. It's neutral. Okay?
You actually care about is acid in the body. In the interstitial...
Great, show me some acid in the body. That's a problem.
Fluid pH actually will go down much earlier than the blood pH. Because
and what does that have to do with acid, James? Still nothing. Nothing at all.
The blood pH has buffers.
Yes. There you go. Fuck, it's incredible, isn't it?
Blood pH has albumin
Yep.
and hemoglobin,
Yep.
which can bind hydrogen ions.
No, not hydrogen ions, James. Still. No. False.
And so interstitial fluid doesn't have that. So the interstitial fluid becomes more acidic quicker than blood.
Yeah, but not meaningfully, James. At all. That's the whole point.
So if we like,
homeostasis is a thing and it works, James. Still.
really what we need to be doing is we need to be testing people's interstitial pH.
No, what we need to be doing, James, is going to a college somewhere that will teach us basic physics, first principles, basic chemistry, and physiology correctly. And you didn't do that, son. At all. Okay? That's what we need to do.
That's, I think, personally, I think that's one of the...
By the way, I went to a college that didn't teach me correctly either. I had to work this out by reading the literature on this and keeping up to date on it and understanding who it was that had a grasp on basic physics and first principles and who it was that didn't. Okay?
The things that we need to do.
First principles are always what should inform us. Basic, known, absolutes. And we absolutely know for a fact, James, that H+ does not exist in aqueous solutions. We absolutely know, James, for a fact that acid has no effect on pH, James. Only ions can do that, according to the law of electroneutrality. We also know that according to Le Chatelier's principle, and according to the specific speciation of the chemical species involved in the bicarbonate buffering system, that bicarbonate concentration in an aqueous solution is absolutely a dependent variable, James. It's not one of the 4 independent levers you can pull to control the pH of a biological or non-biological aqueous solution. Still, these are facts. We know these facts. You don't, somehow. But the other fact that you don't seem to get, James, is that you are not who you think you are in terms of the level of intelligence, knowledge, and understanding of this conceptual area. You're an absolute ignoramus. You're one of the stupidest motherfuckers I've come across. It's incredible.
In the longevity field is starting to test people, are you acidic in the interstitial fluid?
The answer is no. People are not acidic in the interstitial fluid. No.
Urinary pH, though, is a great way to test.
No, it isn't.
Even though it's just testing basically, acutely what's going on from...
No, it isn't. It's testing the pH of the urine, at that time. That's all it's testing. Nothing else.
Dietary intake, if that's what your diet is, and you're constantly having an acidic urine...
So you're testing every lot of urine, are you? Every single time you void your bladder, you're testing the pH of it? No? Okay, well, fuck right off then.
Then that is definitely going to show in the body as well.
Well, no, it isn't. And you just said definitely. The urinary pH is set by homeostatic mechanisms. It is what it is. There's no problem with having urine that's more acidic within physiological range, the normal physiological range. There is no problem here. There's no theoretical problem even, once you understand basic physics, which James doesn't.
Okay, so this will help neutralize some...
Hang on, what are we neutralizing once again, James? Tell us what we're neutralizing. Because we're not neutralizing anything. Nothing that goes on in terms of pumping ions in and out of the blood plasma is neutralizing anything. Still.
That, right? So you got to break down muscle and connective tissue.
No, you don't, still. It's still a false claim that you've just made. It's still rubbish. No.
Which can lead to skeletal muscle insulin resistance.
Can. That leaves can not to, maybe not to, entirely on the table and gives us no indication of which is more likely. Neither does a 1-year so-called clinical study tell us what will happen to an individual over, let's say 67 years. Okay? Because we know what happened to that individual over 67 years. She's stronger, tougher, and harder than you, James. Any day of the week and twice on Sundays. Okay?
You have to break down bone, which...
No, you don't, still. No. Absolute rubbish. Again, why would the human body be so inane after at least 5 million years of evolutionary development along the lines of being hyper-carnivores, which we have had? Why would it be so inane now that the very thing that we have evolved eating will now cause our bones to dissolve suddenly? Literally, have you heard anything stupider other than LDL causes heart disease? It doesn't.
Lead to osteoporosis.
Wrong? No.
And you also will reduce your serum bicarbonate.
No, that's still a dependent variable, James.
Interstitial pH will go down, so your interstitial pH will become...
Yeah, maybe, to some degree, but not very much of a degree. 2/3 of 5/8 of 7/9 of fuck all, remember?
more acidic.
No, not particularly.
The fluid in and around the cells, essentially, becomes more acidic. So
Slightly, maybe.
basically, thyroid hormone function, insulin function won't work as well because, remember...
Hang on. What kind of ranges do you think the interstitial fluid pH goes to? And what meaningful effect do you really think that's going to have on any of the enzymes, which, by the way, have also developed in parallel over the same 5 million years, according to the same positive and negative selection pressures, absolutely as an adjunct and part of that same system? You absolute ridiculous fucking man-child. You imbecile. What's next?
The receptors on all the cells are interfacing that interstitial fluid.
Yes.
So receptors only work at a very, tight regulated pH.
Jesus, lucky that a tight regulated pH is exactly what we fucking get because of the homeostatic mechanism which still fucking exists, James. Gosh, that's lucky, isn't it? Wow, incredible how that works, isn't it?
So that's why actually, during intense exercise, you become more acidic.
No, you don't. No. James, what is the pH of pure water at 37 degrees Celsius, son? What is it? Go and look that up.
Will cease muscle contraction because...
Muscle contraction is not terminated in a fatiguing endurance exercise environment because of acid, James. False again. One of us is an exercise physiologist, among other things, James, and it's not you. Okay? There are many multifaceted reasons for muscle fatigue during exercise, and acidity is not one of them. Period. We're done with that. It's incredible that this boy thinks himself competent to speak outside his lane. It's just... Basically, James, what you should do is shut the fuck up permanently. You're an imbecile. You have no idea what you're talking about at all. None.
Because the interstitial fluid becomes so acidic.
It doesn't become so acidic at all still. Remember, homeostasis still controls it.
That, enzymes and receptors, etc., can't work at a certain...
Absolute rubbish. At the point of volitional exhaustion, when the pH is lowest in the body, fluid compartments, that is coincident with the point at which the metabolism is running at the fastest rate, isn't it, James? Muscular fatigue, volitional muscular fatigue, is a threshold event that occurs, absolutely, but not because of pH. Still.
Certain, if the acidity, if it becomes too acidic, the fluid.
But it doesn't though, because homeostasis is still a thing.
So essentially, that's partly why if you become too acidic or...
Which you still fucking don't.
You vigorously exercise too much, you are building up the acid in the body.
No. What is the pH of pure water at 37 degrees Celsius, James? Still.
That can inhibit enzymes and
rubbish
receptors, and that can lead to the ceasing of muscle function.
It doesn't though, James. That's not why muscle function ceases during fatiguing exercise. Still.
Okay, so there's...
No, it's not okay, James. It's not okay at all for you to come online and go, this proves Bart Kate wrong, and say stuff that's just ridiculous. Absolutely fundamentally false and ridiculous from the ground up. You stupid man-child. No.
Definitely a lot of harms when your interstitial pH...
Hang on. You haven't identified a single harm. Neither have you actually shown us that the interstitial fluid pH is a problem for anybody at any time during life. Because it isn't. Still.
becomes acidic.
It still doesn't.
The other overall harms, we talked a little bit about bone breakdown to get at the
Well, what do you mean other harms? You haven't identified a single harm yet. There aren't any. For goodness sake.
Bicarbonate to form bicarbonate, so that can contribute to osteoporosis if you're not...
It can, and also maybe not too. Right? Will show us some experimental data that shows that osteoporosis occurs over multiple decades in people who eat nothing but meat and animal fat and don't eat fruit and vegetables, James. Shall we wait for that? It does not exist. This is a speculation, and it's a speculation on your part, underpinned purely by your desire to sell people calcium supplements that they still don't fucking need. Buffhead.
Offsetting the acid load.
There is still no acid load. Does not exist. Still.
Kidney stones as well, so...
Kidney stones are calcium oxalate, James, for God's sake. Where do you think oxalate comes from? I'll give you a hint, it's not meat.
This may not happen, though.
Right, good. None of this is going to happen. That's the point. This is all a theology made up by James because he wants to sell you calcium supplements. Still.
This is increasing the propensity. It's
not, James. It's not at all. Your basic fundamental model upon which you are labouring is false, demonstrably, at every single fucking turn, as I've pointed out, I think, more than adequately already.
You will definitively get a kidney stone.
That's right. You almost definitively will not get a kidney stone if you eat a species-appropriate, species-specific diet throughout the lifespan.
Acidic urine increases the propensity for oxalate and uric acid kidney stones.
Yeah, but once again, where did the oxalate come from, sunshine? Where was that coming from? Fucking hell.
But if you're eating no oxalate, you may not form any.
So fuck off then, James.
So that one might...
Seriously, James, fuck off. Fuck right off. Take your ridiculous, farcical fucking YouTube channel down. Stop posting on X, you mindless excremental cunt. Pull your fucking head in. Learn your fucking place in the hierarchy of who knows what about what. Because you know dick about fuck.
Not be a big deal. The bigger deals that you really can't offset would be the possible damage to the kidneys.
Possible. What damage to the kidneys, James? Show me a carnivore eating nothing but meat and animal fat for multiple decades with kidney damage. Shall we wait for that? Fucking hell, this is incredible.
The electrolyte loss.
What electrolyte loss?
The negative calcium balance is a...
What negative calcium balance, James? You're going to tap a pseudo-clinical trial that was poorly conducted over a 1-year period with a clinically meaningless loss of calcium over that relatively shortish term. To turn your bones into osteoporotic, brittle things, James, takes decades and decades. It doesn't happen in a year under anything like normal circumstances, and eating meat and animal fat is entirely normal. Show me someone suffering from any significant osteoporosis that has done nothing but eat animal fat and protein their entire lives. They've never consumed a plant material of any kind. There are no confounders. Show me such an experiment, James. To which James would say, Bart K is just being unreasonable with his epistemological standards. No, James. One of us is being unreasonable, some. It's you. It's the one trying to sell people calcium supplements that they don't need. On the basis of reductionist nonsense, mechanistic speculation, and falsehood. Outright falsehood. Based on your absolute destitution of comprehension of basic physics, basic chemistry, and basic physiological parameters like homeostasis. It's an absolute joke that you think yourself remotely competent to step into the ring with me, sunshine. Well, I think you know you're not. That's why you're not doing it. That's why you're not doing it. Because you actually lack the set, and you actually know in your heart of hearts that I will tear you to bits without breaking a sweat or swearing at you. I don't need to. It's just fun for me and my viewers. You can make that a stipulation if you like. I have to remain calm and not swear at you. That's fine. This is all a bit of an act I do just to help keep the vibe of the show rolling, because basically at the end of the day, this is painfully boring, James. Painfully boring. And you seriously need to do something about that mouth-smacking noise that you're making all the time. Seriously. It's not helping you.
Hard one. You can eat more calcium, you can eat more dairy to try and offset that, but you're still increasing the acidity of the interstitial fluids.
No, that's wrong, James, still. It's still false. Doesn't matter how many times you say it, it is still false.
You're still breaking down bone.
No, you're still not, James. It's still false. I'm not breaking down bone. My bone mineral density remains rock solid. And I'm 12 and a bit years in. Nothing like Maggie with her 67. All hail Maggie.
From activating the osteoclast.
And all tailhead. Tailhead? All hail Ted. Got that all ass about face, didn't I? Just like James gets everything ass about face. It's incredible.
It's not good for the bone. You're still going to have...
No, James. Nonsense. You've just said it's not good for the bone to eat meat and animal fat. That's false, James. The exact opposite seems anecdotally in every case to be true. Show me an osteoporotic person who's been eating carnivore their whole life. Or even someone who's been eating carnivore for a number of decades. Show me an osteoporotic person who's been eating carnivore for a number of decades. Shall we wait for that? Your theorized problem does not pan out in objective reality. Still.
To produce more ammonia, which is not good for...
No, you still are not producing ammonia, you fucking ignorant cunt. Still isn't happening.
The kidneys.
No, it's still not harming the kidneys because it's still not being produced.
So kidneys are going to take a hit.
Rubbish.
Bone is going to take a hit.
Rubbish. Doesn't happen.
Regardless if you supplement with, like, let's say, a lot of dairy on a carnivore.
Rubbish. Absolute fucking nonsense. Doesn't happen. Still. We're still waiting for any example of an osteoporotic individual who's been eating carnivore demonstrably for a number of decades. Okay? Fuck off, James, you imbecile.
Carnivore diet. And you have to eat a lot more calcium, too.
No, you don't. No, you don't at all.
If you are not offsetting animal protein with some type of base. Like...
Rubbish, James. Absolute nonsense. That's a theology. There is no evidence to underpin that at all, except your poorly disciplined, ridiculous, relatively short-term, one-year study that talks about a very, very minor adjustment to a person's bone mineral density over that very short period of time. There are still no evidences at all on multiple decadal carnivores. None.
Or sodium or potassium bicarbonate.
Bicarbonate is still a dependent variable. You still cannot independently moderate its concentration by adding nor by removing it. Still.
There's actually...
Still a fact, James. Doesn't matter how many times you say otherwise, it is still a demonstrable fact of basic physics.
In clinical studies, alkalinizing the body showing reduction...
Again, what is that, James? Still alkalinizing the body. What is that?
In joint pain and back pain. So you might be asking, well, how does that basically happen? The interstitial fluid, when it's more...
So you'd be guessing then. Mechanistic speculation again. Go on, guess.
Acidic will actually...
No, there's no acidity problem in the human body still.
Cause joint pain.
Not during life. The only time your pH becomes meaningfully deranged is at the point just before you die.
And back pain. And so giving alkaline minerals has been shown to...
What alkaline minerals? What the hell does that mean, James?
To actually improve joint pain and back pain.
I know what James thinks it means. I know what most people thinks it means. The challenge is for him to show us that he actually has any comprehension of this at all. When in fact what he is showing us in spades is the exact opposite, i.e. that he has no comprehension of this whatsoever. None at all.
You do get an increase in cortisol. The increase in cortisol
So what?
happens to actually break down the skeletal muscle to get at the glutamine.
Absolute fucking rubbish, James. Where did you get that from?
To help you excrete
Where did you get that from?
the negatively charged sulfate. So higher cortisol as well.
In some people. What was the cause of the elevated cortisol in some people, James?
Increases in blood pressure.
Increases in blood pressure, James, typically they're caused by hyperinsulinemia in most folks that have that situation going on. What's the cause of hyperinsulinemia? Don't say it's eating fat, James. I know you probably want to. It isn't true, though.
Talked about decreases in kidney function. You can.
What decrease in kidney function? My kidney function's perfect. So's Maggie's. 67 years later. Oops.
And also see.
And, millions of others as well. That's just N equals 2 that I listed there. But there are millions and millions of people eating a species-appropriate, species-specific diet consisting of the meat and fat of animals and nothing else to speak of, who are not dissolving on the floor in a pile because their bones have become soft, neither have their kidneys exploded. Oops.
Because what ends up happening is, in order to excrete such a high amount of acid...
Well, you're still not excreting any acid, James. Remember the facts still are important here in the subjective reality. Just saying excreting acid 100 times in a video doesn't mean that's what you're doing. You still fucking aren't. It's not happening. It's a fantasy.
A tremendous amount of increase in blood flow to the kidney has to happen. And so...
No. False again.
So that increased blood flow to the kidney.
Oh, now increased blood flow to a kidney is a problem, is it? It goes from the sublime to the ridiculous, doesn't it?
Causes you to lose...
Sorry, it goes from the ridiculous to the even more ridiculous. That's what it does.
Lose more electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, potassium, etc.
Amazing. Maybe you do excrete more electrolytes at various times under various influences physiologically. Lucky we can get some more by consuming some. Solves that problem. What's next?
Etc. And so it also leads to a hyperfiltration at the kidney level. So if you can constantly do that, that's not good. You don't want to constantly be
You don't want your kidneys constantly working, James? You don't want your kidneys constantly doing what they are absolutely fucking designed to do by at least 5 million years of evolution? Why not?
Filtering a ton of blood at the kidney level.
A ton of blood?
To excrete all this acid.
No, you're still not excreting acid, James. None, ever, still.
That can lead to, tubule hypertrophy and damage.
See how you said can there? Maybe not two. Again, are you going to tap anything that's going to suggest that any of that kind of thing happens? And if you are you going to tap a properly designed, properly controlled metabolic walled lock-in study in human beings over multiple decades? Because that's what's important in terms of heart health outcomes, isn't it? No, you're not going to do that. You're just going to continue to be a theologist. You're just going to continue to try and justify your ridiculous, unnecessary calcium supplements that you sell.
Much to the kidneys that way. Okay, so simple solution, what do? I will try to eat some fruits and vegetables, but I'm never...
Well, that's a wrong thing to do, James. That's a mistake.
I'm going to consume 2 to 3 times the amount
Well, hang on, you told us that's what was required. So you're not solving the problem then. Are your bones dissolving because you're not solving the problem that you tell us we absolutely have to do to solve the problem? Whoopsie daisy! That's almost the best bit of the video right there. Well done, James. So you're not doing this.
Weight as compared to the animal foods that I eat. Because I eat an animal-based diet. So typically...
So what you're telling us that we need to do, you're not doing. Ergo, you should be subject to this problem. Your bones should be dissolving. Are they, James? Oh, my word. My word. Are we done? Are we done with James DiNicolantonio? No idea? It's finished since we started, but wow.
What I just do is I consume 2 to 3 Sometimes 4, depending on if I eat a lot of like animal protein and eggs and cheese.
Well, this guy's communication skills are not good, are they? At all. His presentation skills, not good at all. His ability to stay on task and actually be cogent.
Then I'll maybe consume 4 sodium and potassium bicarbonate capsules.
Right, so you'll take capsules of bicarbonate, which still seems to make it very, very clear that you do not understand that bicarbonate is a dependent variable in terms of its concentration still. What if you take some bicarbonate, James, in a spoon, put it in some water and dissolve it into the water, bang that back into your stomach, what happens soon afterwards? What's that? Carbon dioxide gas, James. Where did that come from? Go and have a look at the bicarbonate buffering equilibria. You ridiculous fucking imbecile. Basic first principles again. First principles, things that we know, facts that we understand. Okay?
Close to my animal-based meal. So that would be somewhere between either an hour before all the way down to like an hour after. Anywhere in between, I'll do that. Now, the stomach will compensate. So a lot of people...
Homeostasis again, James. The very thing that precludes the problem that you suggest occurs. Yep, go on.
We'll say, well, if you consume bicarbonate close to the time of, let's say, your meal, are you going to decrease, acidity, et cetera? No, like the animal studies that have done this.
Animal studies, okay. Well, that's not applicable to a human being then.
And so they can actually test the gastric acid secretion and the acidity in the stomach have shown that when they take bicarbonate, the body compensates.
That's right. But also there's a completely physically based, absolutely inescapable self-reequilibration according to Le Chatelier's principle, James, as well. So all you're doing is giving us all the reasons why taking bicarbonate will not fucking help. Absolutely will not and cannot. How is this hard to understand? Unless, of course, you are very low IQ like James is.
So actually, it's the compensation that how this works. So a lot of people will say, well, if you consume bicarbonate, that basically it'll just turn into gas, right? You'll just, turn into...
Gosh, the echo's good in here, isn't it? Because that's what happens, James.
CO2, you'll just breathe it out, right? It like bubbles up.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is actually how it works in the body is...
Oh, hang on. Now you're going to tell us that it works differently in the body than it does actually work in the body, the way that we've just described that it does happen. Good. Tell us why your fantasy is better than actual objective reality, James. Let's hear it.
So the bicarbonate hits the acid.
Yep.
The acid production goes down.
Which acid is that, James? By the way, the bicarbonate hits the acid. Great. What acid? You'll probably say hydrochloric acid in the stomach. No. What's the pK value of hydrochloric acid, James? Is it more than 2 points lower than the local pH? Yeah.
The body then compensates and increases the acid production to make sure that the acid production is the same. But when the body produces an acid, it also...
Yeah, but the stomach doesn't work by producing acid, let alone hydrochloric acid. Stomach acidity is maintained, James, by the pumping of ions in or out of the stomach. Still, chloride ions are the most important ones there. Their net decrease in the electrochemical charge quotient of that fluid pool is offset automatically according to the laws of physics, specifically the law of conservation of electroneutrality, and that is resulting in more hydronium ions existing in that fluid pool than otherwise would, precisely in order to maintain that electroneutrality. Okay? It's not acid.
He absorbs the bicarbonate. So you finally get your acid back up to normal levels, but you've alkalinized the body.
No, you haven't, because the concentration of bicarbonate, James, is still a dependent fucking variable, you mindless fucking shit stain. Still. What's next?
Because you had to produce more bicarbonate to secrete more acid.
No, because you weren't excreting any acid still.
So there are people in this space that aren't experts that claim.
He's talking about me, and I absolutely am vastly more expert in this than he is, clearly. Anyone with any degree of sophistication in their understanding of basic physics can watch this video and see which one of us understands acid-base and which one of us is mindlessly espousing a very tired old paradigm which is demonstrably false. One of us is speaking in absolutely unassailable facts, and the other one is giving us mechanistic speculation, false mechanistic speculation, describing the physical phenomena surrounding this area of knowledge falsely, like suggesting H+ exists in water. No, it doesn't. Like suggesting that we're excreting acid. No, we're not. Like suggesting all of these things are going to happen to us if we eat nothing but meat and fat, when we look objectively at people who have been doing that for multiple decades, and the problem that James is talking about is not evident in any of them. Wow. The total lack of any degree of self-awareness here is just beyond stunning. It really, really is. How much is left of this? My God, 4 more minutes. Let's hear it, James.
Taking sodium bicarbonate isn't alkalinizing because it'll just bubble up as CO2 and you'll breathe it out. And when you
So people that state absolutely demonstrable facts underpinned by actual physics and first principles are just people who don't understand this and haven't studied it, according to James. Okay.
Consume bicarbonate, you burp, and you're not absorbing bicarbonate. They don't understand the physiology on how actually...
Oh, right. So I don't understand physiology is what James is implying there. Which one of us doesn't understand physiology, James? Which one of us doesn't know what the pH of pure water at 37 degrees C is? Which one of us doesn't know what the difference between an acid and an ion is? Which one of us likes to throw around terms that are poorly or in fact not defined at all? Which one of us wants to make up problems to subservers need to sell people calcium supplements that they don't need? Which, James?
Actually ingesting bicarbonate works, how it alkalinizes. So
how do you think it works though, James? And how do you ingest bicarbonate? In what form? Think about that.
You actually don't really absorb much of the bicarbonate
That's right, you don't.
You're consuming. That is true. Your body is producing more bicarbonate, though.
Which is still a dependent variable, so the fact that it's producing it doesn't mean that that has independent control over its concentration. It still fucking doesn't. Because Le Chatelier's principle still applies. The bicarbonate buffering system still exists. And the fluid in the stomach is still able to be accessed by the atmosphere. Still happens. Objectively it happens. Try it at home yourselves, kiddies. Do it now. Get some bicarbonate in the form of, by the way, here's the hint, James, sodium bicarbonate. Okay? Wham that into a glass of water and wham it down and see what happens in the next 5 minutes. See what happens. Okay? One of us is making shit up and one of us has actually done this.
And that's how you alkalinize the body with.
No, you don't still alkalinize the body. You still haven't even defined that, James. What the fuck is that when it's at home?
Sodium or potassium bicarbonate. So again, just to quickly...
Sodium or potassium. Do they have positive electrochemical charges, James? Yes, they do. Are they volatile in the way that bicarbonate is, James? No, they're not. Okay, so when you take sodium bicarbonate into your stomach, what's left behind? An unnegated, otherwise, sodium ion, which therefore changes the pH of the stomach fluid momentarily until your stomach re-equilibrates by pumping that sodium out, so that the chlorine that it's pumping in is able to maintain the level of acidity that is required at that time. Still. You're right, though, James. I don't understand physiology at all.
Cover
Ridiculous fucking cunt stain.
for how we're producing more bicarbonate. When you consume it, the bicarbonate drops the
Get some presentation skills, sunshine. But first, get the first clue about what you're presenting. That'll be helpful.
hydrogen ions. The stomach has to secrete.
Hydrogen ions still don't fucking exist in aqueous solutions at physiological temperatures, pressures, etc., James. Still.
More, and when the stomach secretes more to get the hydrogen ions back to
No, still not hydrogen ions, James. Still not.
baseline, it had to produce an equal amount of bicarbonate.
No, it didn't. At all. Absolute fucking nonsense. Where did you get that from? What logic underpins that statement? None at all.
So you have now increased the production of bicarbonate and alkalinized the body
Wrong. False. Absolute nonsense. It's still a dependent variable, James.
that way when you consume bicarbonate.
Rubbish.
Okay?
No, it's not okay, James. It's not okay for you to stand there and spout absolute, demonstrable fallacies based on some farcical, invented physics that doesn't pan out in the actual objective reality in which we find ourselves. Not okay at all. You pathetic imbecile. You ridiculous boy. What's next?
So there's been people trying to claim that this is nonsense, etc., because you burp it
People have been claiming that.
out and they just don't
People that have done it and found out that it is in fact what happens.
understand what's called alkaline tide.
Oh, dear, oh dear. That's right. We just don't understand your logic or lack of it. We don't understand your physics, James, which is based entirely on falsehoods. And you still haven't defined alkaline or tide. Are you going to?
Okay.
No, it's not okay, James. Not okay at all.
So, but people will say, well, from an evolutionary perspective, how did we get bicarbonate, right?
Right. Well, there are several ways. You can consume some bicarbonate. It's available in various sources. Your body's also capable of manufacturing it. Nonetheless, it's still a dependent variable in terms of its concentration in any aqueous solution anywhere in the universe at any time. Still.
Like, that's a good question. Well, we actually used to get a lot of bicarbonate. So, blood
So?
contains 1,800 milligrams per liter of bicarbonate. And
So?
in interstitial fluid, it's going to contain a very similar amount. Now, in a human body, we have about 3.5 liters of plasma and about 10.5 liters of interstitial fluid. So we have 14 liters of extracellular fluid
Right.
at 1,800 milligrams of bicarbonate per liter. So that's
Okay.
25,200 milligrams of bicarbonate.
Right. And what is it that controls the equilibrium value, the concentration of that bicarbonate in each and every individual fluid pool that the body has? Still physics, and it's still dependent. All right? So what's your point?
In a human. But when you look at Mickey Bendor and his publications, basically ancient humans seemed to have hunted mostly elephants, slow, ton of calories, a ton of fat.
No calories at all, James. Not one ever. Still. You don't even understand that. My word. If ever you wanted to be absolutely certain that this buffoon does not understand basic physics, there it is, calories, he says. No, James.
It'd be the typical ideal meal for, let's say, a tribe of 40 humans is to just hunt a slow elephant, right? They're enormous and they provide a ton of calories.
No, they don't. No calories at all, still.
They also provide a ton of blood and they provide a ton of bicarbonate.
A ton, you say? Might be about right for an elephant. A ton of an elephant? Okay.
I'm going to show you how much. So, just extrapolating this.
What the fuck has this got to do with the price of fish in China in 1965 or any fucking thing else? Son, what?
If you look at an elephant, then you're talking about 171.5 liters of plasma and
so what?
514.5 liters of interstitial fluid.
And so we drank all the blood plasma, did we? And all the interstitial fluids. We drank all of those too, did we? None of that was lost when the butchering of the animal occurred? No? Okay. James's imaginary physics again.
A total of 686 liters of extracellular fluid.
Right? Between how many people?
Or 1.234 million milligrams of bicarbonate.
Yes. Over how many people?
In the fluid, the extracellular fluid.
The fluid that leaked out when you cut the animal open to butcher it up, mostly. Okay.
Elephant. Now, the bone contains a tremendous amount of bicarbonate-forming substance.
Yeah, and did we eat bones of the elephants? Is there any evidence of humans eating a significant amount of bone at all, James?
In a human, bone contains 1.8 million milligrams of bicarbonate.
What is the point of this? For God's sake, son. Are we serious? He is. That's the problem. He really thinks he's making a good point here. I'm sure of it. Let's hear it.
Carbonate from bicarbonate-forming substances like calcium carbonate. An elephant would be 70 times that, which would be 126 million.
Did you notice an elephant's a lot bigger than a person, James? I did. And I didn't need a study to prove it to me. I also understand that a chicken is smaller than a cow. Unlike Nicholas, the fruitivore, whatever he's calling himself, the nutrivore, when he had that debate with Sean Baker. Wasn't that funny? Remember that? He needed a study to establish the fact that a chicken is smaller than a cow. That's the kind of level that James is at.
Million milligrams of bicarbonate.
Same kind of voice affectation too. Interesting, isn't it?
Mineral.
Oh, stop with the mouth smacking, cunt face.
Water. So natural, we drink plain water now that lacks bicarbonate, but natural water contains.
Do we? Do you know what we all drink, James? We, you say? Who's we? The water I drink doesn't lack bicarbonate, not at all.
Somewhere between 200 and 1,800 milligrams of bicarbonate. And then fruits and tubers have bicarbonate-forming substances like citrate and malate. So bottom line is
they're not forming substances. They are substances that participate in reactions which reductively you can look at in isolation and say, well, here's what goes in and bicarbonate comes out. But then you'd make the assumption that the bicarbonate coming out of that reaction remains there because you're thinking, oh, I've got to account for mass. It can't go anywhere. Well, it fucking can go somewhere, James. It can go through the bicarbonate buffering system and be ejected from the body in the form of carbon dioxide gas, you mindless cunt. It's still a dependent variable. Why is this hard to understand? Well, it's not really probably hard to understand. It's just that he refuses to. A, because he's got his nose out of joint with me, because I've shown him up really badly for his destitution of comprehension here. And also because he wants to sell you calcium supplements and bicarbonate too, it seems. Buy bicarbonate in capsules from James, everybody. Don't do that.
We used to consume a lot of bicarbonate.
You said that, and you haven't proved it. You've given us some farcical theory about elephants. I've got some theories about large animals that used to run around as well. I've got a theory about brontosauruses, or is it brontosauri? It's brontosauri, I'm sure. Here's my theory about brontosauri. All brontosauri are very, very thin at one end, much, much fatter in the middle, and very, very thin again at the other end. Prove me wrong.
Okay, so
the point is, so fucking what? We used to eat elephants, or animals related to elephants, actually, mostly. So?
People will say, well, it's not natural to take bicarbonate, blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, we are no longer consuming the blood and the interstitial fluid, which would have a ton of...
So you know what everyone's consuming now, do you, James? I eat a fair bit of black pudding that doesn't contain grains. I have it made specially. I should eat more of it because I really like that. And it does contain, blood and everything that's in that blood.
Bicarbonate in it in an elephant. We're no longer gnawing on bone, which has a ton of bicarbonate forming substance.
Who gnaws on bones? Humans are designed by evolution to get their nutrition from the meat and associated fat of animals, not their skeletal structures. Sure, we can crack open bones and get the bone marrow out. That's quite nice too. But have you noticed, James, people don't eat bones? Do they? Dogs do. We're not dogs.
And one of the best key things too is we're no longer consuming meat fresh. So when we used to hunt
Again, who's we, James? Who's this we that's not doing all these things?
Animal, we would consume the meat, let's say some of the meat within 24 hours. That
right, some of it.
Meat would have had a lot more bicarbonate in the fluids and in the actual muscle.
So does it lose the bicarbonate, James? Is that because you don't have to account for the mass of it and it's not going to remain there just because it was there? Are you now accepting absolutely that it's volatile and can exit that meat and will do? Right, good.
Muscle meat itself. But quickly after death, basically you have anaerobic metabolism that starts to occur. So
who has anaerobic metabolism that starts to occur after death? Because after death, there's no metabolism going on at all, James. What are you talking about?
Especially after 4 hours, the meat and the fluids become much more acidic, right? You're forming the anaerobic.
That's because the homeostatic mechanism that was controlling the pH of that tissue is no longer at play because that individual animal has died. What a shock. So once again, thank you, James, for proving my point. Homeostasis is a thing. It does take care of us, and we don't need to worry about it. Good.
Metabolism is forming lactic.
But I don't know anything about it. You're about to say lactic acid, aren't you, James? Go on.
Acid.
No, wrong. Lactic acid also does not exist physiologically. Absolute fucking rubbish, James. Absolute fucking rubbish. Lactic acid. Goodness gracious. Metabolism produces lactate directly, not lactic acid. Okay?
Naturally, right? Hydrogen ions.
No, not hydrogen ions still, because they still don't exist in aqueous solutions at all, still.
And the lactate are forming from the lack of blood flow now to the muscle. So
no, that's not why it's forming at all. Goodness gracious. Wow, this is the boy that's claiming that he knows more about physiology than I do. Wow. Stunning.
When you consume meat fresh, you get much more bicarbonate versus we now consume.
Yeah, but it's still a dependent variable, James. Still. So it doesn't matter, does it? The amount of bicarbonate in all of your fluid compartments of your body is controlled by physics. Still. The bicarbonate buffering system still exists. It still works. It's a law of physics that doesn't require life, even. It's basic physics. It's aqueous chemistry. Still. Wow.
Typically, meat that's been hung for 2 to 3 weeks. So, in other words, we're eating in a bicarbonate depleted state.
Oh, God, no, we're not, because bicarbonate is still a dependent variable, and its exact concentration in all fluid pools at all times is still controlled by physics, James. It's still dependent.
When we're simply consuming modern day carnivore, we're not consuming, carnivore from 2.6 million years ago. Most of it, at least, most of us aren't like hunting elk and then eating that meat within 2 to 4 hours. Not that evolutionarily we always ate fresh meat. I'm just saying you would have gotten some.
You're just saying words, James, because you feel like it, and you haven't actually even thought about what words you're going to say before you say them, have you?
Through that pathway, through the blood, interstitial fluid, bone, and fresher meat. So that's why I take 2 to 3 sodium potassium bicarbonate capsules.
Right, so everybody go and buy sodium and sodium what? Sodium bicarbonate, did you say? And calcium supplements from James is what he's saying, because he said so. To solve a problem that does not exist. Demonstrably. Because he knows absolutely all about this, and he's just shown us how little he does actually know about it. Ridiculous, James, from start to finish. You really are an absolute cunt stain. You should shut the fuck up permanently. You should pull your fucking arrogant head in, frankly, and learn your place. in terms of the hierarchy of who knows what about this particular field of endeavour, interest, study. It's not you, son. It's absolutely clear you don't have the first fucking clue what you're talking about. It's ridiculous. I'm done. I hope you all enjoyed it. Join me next time when someone will be wrong on the interwebs. And the way I'm feeling now, it could well be James again. See you then.